Guru Nanak Fifth Centenary Schools in Missouri. I was there for probably 4 or 5 years until the whole group moved out of Missouri and we moved down the hill to Dehradun, and that was Guru Ramdas Academy, and that's where I finished the next probably 5 years of my schooling until I graduated. And that was a little bit different in that Siri Singh Sahib helped found the school, but he still didn't have too much of a say in the curriculum and in what we did. There was a little bit more leeway, like we did have more Gatka classes, and we had a little bit of Kundalini yoga was there, not too much, but there was a little bit. And we had Western people who were in higher positions of staff, like Siri Singh was the vice principal, and Gurpreet Singh, he was very influential there, in Sadhana Kaur, and there was many people over the years that I was there that were actually had more of a say in the program and in the care of the kids. So that changed things.
My name is Guru Sadhana. I went to school in India from 1986 to 1996. I was 8 years old when I started at GNFC in Missouri, and then we moved to GRD 3 years later in 1989. The move to GRD was awesome. In the first year, our classroom was just out in the mango grove, and so we would just sit on these rocks and kind of nap and fall asleep during class. And we were living in somebody's house for the first half of that year. And then we finally moved into our dorms, which, coming from GNFC, where we had about 70 girls in bunk beds in the dorms, we moved into rooms with about 14 girls in a dorm. It's a small group. When we first started, there was only the American kids. So it was very like close-knit, cozy environment in the first year or two. Then the school opened up to be like a public boarding school, and a lot of children from Thailand and all over India showed up. I think the girls, we kind of developed like a better social structure than we had in GNFC. And we stopped a lot of the junior-senior sort of evil relationship that was going on in GNFC, but the boys took a lot longer. They still had like the seniors just, dude, I'm gonna kick your ass, and lots of that kind of stuff going on.
Okay, so I went to, my first year in India was in 4th grade. I was 9 years old. It was in 1990. I think it was 91 was my first year. It was the second year of GRD. You're going into this British Indian system where you have to learn how to, it's no longer about representing your understanding of the lesson from your own voice. You have to speak in the book term. So I went from being this overachieving student to failing all the time. And I remember the first time I got slapped. Remember the first time I got beat by my teacher for not answering correctly, even though I said the exact same thing just from my own voice, and I remember that being very difficult. That was the system there.
Harbhajan Singh was my headmaster at Gold House. He was notorious for saying, come here, sweetie, and then a nice tight slap. He did not like my brother at all, but he very much liked me.
We tried to break into somebody's cupboard by using these, it was like basically like a flamethrower firework, to try and burn his lock open. We tried to melt his lock enough to burn it open, but instead the sparks had created a fire in his cupboard, and we burned down his cupboard, which was a metal cupboard. We got in a lot of trouble for it. So for 6 months, I had to wash Harvey's socks every morning in his quarters, and they'd be cooking these pronte, and they never, I wasn't allowed to have anything. But I'm sitting there squatting on the floor of his bathroom, scrubbing his socks and underwear every morning for 6 months. He'd wake me up before everybody else. He hated me. He'd beat me all the time. But his idea of giving out pocket money was to set up a chair and a desk in the middle of the soccer field and have all of Gold House. There are 3 houses, so Gold House is probably 150 people. all of Gold House stand in a semicircle around him and call each kid one by one, tell a story about how good or bad they were, have them sign, and either give them their pocket money or not. And I would say 70% of the house never got pocket money. But I definitely didn't get it. He didn't like me. He always told me, why can't you be like your sister? She's so good, you're a piece of shit, you know?
And as the years went on, it got more organized. So we started having, you know, inter-house competitions and all of the track and field things like shot put and javelin and relay races and all these random sports. And badminton, volleyball, basketball was the biggest though. Basketball court was like in the middle of the school, and it was kind of shared between all the basketball people and the skateboarders. There was a lot of skateboarding going on.
We lived on this beautiful campus. We had this whole area that was all cement. So for skateboarding, it was like Shangri-La for skateboarders. We had all these places to ride. We had a huge soccer field that was not grass, but you know, if you wanted to play, we played baseball in there a few times. We learned how to play cricket there. We used to play tuppa, and we used to play King Queen in Princey's garden. He had this little grass square field where we play King Queen with a ball. We play Pittu Guttam. We play all these different Lungadi Dung, all that kind of stuff. And we would sit up in the lychee trees in season and eat lychees. And it was different. We were up in the mountains, clean. Behind our area, there was this Tibetan family that lived in a little village, and we'd always have battles with them. And we would bunk to town. It was totally normal. Jump the wall, go to Rajpur, buy cabbage, onions, tomatoes, Amul cheese, and some Wonder Bread. And then you'd jump back into the school and meet on the hockey field, which was on the gate side, or meet in Princey's garden, which had these like mango trees that would get these crazy spiders, and we'd climb up into the mango trees and make ourselves sandwiches and eat like a whole loaf of bread each. There was a lot of pressure on the student body to take care of itself. There wasn't a whole lot of care or attention from the staff. Like, I mean, in GRD, when I was 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, I had lice for 3 years. Nobody was looking out for us. The first 2 years was always the hardest for any student coming, and then by the 3rd year, you didn't want to leave because you had banded so tightly with your friends, and this was your culture, and you didn't want to reject it. You didn't want to leave. And I remember that feeling.
There was a big gap between that and then the next generation of the school that started in Amritsar. And in that time, Yogiji was looking for a place, Siri Singh Sahib was looking for a place to set everything up, and I think he was also kind of done with the idea of sharing it with other people, and he wanted to establish something that could be ours, that he could really have influence on what was taught there, the discipline system, and all of the different things that he saw and he had for the vision of the school to come to fruition.